Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to TED Talks Ball. We've got a special Thursday afternoon edition, a special Behind Enemy Lines edition. I'm here with Lexi. She's part of Kingdom Queens, and she's a big Chiefs fan. So I'd say a Chiefs expert, considering I was referred to her by at least 2 or 3 different people that I asked about Chiefs content creators to have Behind Enemy Lines. So Lexi, welcome to the show. It's at Lexi Osborne on Twitter. At Kingdom Queens is also on Twitter. And then the actual Kingdom Queens link to the YouTube page is in the description of the show. So Lexi, welcome to the show. And thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah, it should be fun. As I was saying, I try not to be too big of a homer. I try to be pretty fair. Like on the timeline, I can be pretty toxic because that's just sort of what's out there on the timeline is a lot of toxicity. I can do that too.
Okay.
And I tend to admire people. Like you'll notice on your tweet where you were complaining that this guy had picked like 8. In fact, why don't I bring it up? This guy had picked like 8 Niners and only 2 Chiefs as like the top 10 players in the Super Bowl. And you were just sort of like, well, what about Chris Jones and Kelsey and Snead? And I was like, homer alert. So like you're being cool and the sign be cool, that type of thing. It's like, it's just when people get toxic, then I will tend to mirror that out there. And that's what you find a lot out there, unfortunately, on the Twitter X timeline these days. It seems like a lot of people are a little bit less than pleasant, you might say. Trolls and negative people, boobers, just always looking for something to be negative about. But so here it is. So it was the Carton show at Craig Carton Live, and he had picked number 1 was Mahomes. I think we can all agree on that. He picked number 2 Purdy. I think a lot of people would have issues with that. 3 McCaffrey. For me, that would be my number 2. 4 Debo. 5 Ayuk, 6 Trent Williams. I think Trent Williams would be right up there with McCaffrey too for me, ahead of Purdy, maybe even Debo as well, maybe even Kittle as well. Anyway, he had Williams 6, Kittle 7, Bosa 8, Warner 9, and Butker 10. But yeah, I mean, I think that Chris Jones is better than quite a few of those Niners. And Kelsey and Kittle, there's always this argument about, who's better. A lot of people think Kelsey.
Them both up there, right?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as overall tight end, you got to give it to Kittle because he blocks. But, as a receiving tight end, a lot of people will give it to Kelsey. I always just said if you put Kittle on the Chiefs, he could do most of that stuff plus block and yak. But it's hard to say. Like, we're finally starting to see what Kittle can do with a real QB now that we have Brock Purdy. But Brock is no Patrick Mahomes. You guys have had typically better pass blocking lines. And a pass happy scheme. I mean, usually most years the Chiefs lead the league in pass attempts or at least percentage of pass to run. And the Niners are usually flip that. We usually have one of the highest run percentages and lowest pass percentages in the league. So,
I actually think Kelsey, if you've watched some of our games closer this year, I think he's done a better job of blocking this season. I think he hears all that talk of, he's not a passing or not a blocking tight end. And I've actually watched him improve that a little bit this season. So, I think
I'll say I think it was probably a little bit unfair, that criticism of Kelsey. It wasn't so much that he couldn't block, it's just that he didn't, that he wasn't asked to a lot.
Right.
And so there is a difference. When he did decide to do it, he did a pretty good job of it. He's not as good as Kittle because Kittle's the best, but definitely better than someone like Mark Andrews or I think Sam Laporta. He's good for a rookie, but I'd say Kelsey's
it's too early for him. It's too early to say, but he's really good. I enjoy Sam Laporta, but
yeah, he's had a hell of a rookie season. These Iowa tight ends, Hawkinson too. They're definitely turning into tight end university for sure. So let's say hi to some folks in the audience here. We got Brian Culp in the house saying smash that like button, everyone. Thanks, Bryant. Bryant has his own show. Make sure you check him out. Jimmy Perez in the house. He's saying, what's up, Ted? What's up, Jimmy? Smash the like and subscribe. Yeah, and here's the thing, folks. We're streaming to both channels. So if you're on TED Talks Ball, make sure you get over to Kingdom Queens. Give them a like and subscribe. Same thing. I would say if you're on Lexi's channel, if you could get over and give me a like and subscribe, that'd be great. I also always encourage people, if you're on a web browser, to go ahead and open up 2 tabs and watch us both at the same time. And that way we can get more watch hours, because the subscribers are great, but once you hit your thresholds with subscribers, then it's all about those view hours. So I'm just kind of taking my own advice here and queuing up Kingdom Queens so that I can watch on both channels. But I've been talking a little bit, so and I'll get back to the. There's lots of comments. I don't want to get too far behind, but at the same time, let me give you a chance to talk a little bit here, Lexi.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just looking forward to the rematch overall. I think a lot of our team has changed on both sides of the ball, but I think a lot of our team has stayed the same as well for both of us. So I think, you know, you have guys like Fred Warner, who he's one of my favorite players in the league. That's not a Chief, right? And so guys like him, guys like George Kittle, I have a ton of respect for. Christian McCaffrey. I really enjoy Brock Purdy's story. I think being the last pick, Mr. Irrelevant, all that good stuff. And then really, I mean, I think he has that narrative right now of being a game manager, right? And I think that's a little bit, that's not my favorite thing to call him, I guess. I don't think of him that way. I think he's earned his respect. He's gotten you guys to the NFC Championship 2 years in a row, and then now to the Super Bowl in his second season. So I think what he's doing is impressive, and I think our teams are going to match up really well. And what's funny is a lot of NFL fans are really super sick of the Chiefs, and then I think kind of sick of the Niners too, just because our teams do so well over and over and over again. And so I do think, I think people are like, oh, we wanted the Ravens and Lions in the Super Bowl just to see something different. But I actually think our 2 teams are going to give us a heck of a show. I think it's going to be a fantastic matchup, and I look forward to it. I think the Chiefs' defense has been one of the best all season long. They have not allowed a lot of points in the playoffs at all. Gave the most up to Josh Allen and the Bills. And that's because they always play us really well. But ultimately, we did come out with that win there. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's going to be a really fun matchup. I'm looking forward to it.
A lot different than
matchup really well.
Yeah, no doubt, and a lot different than 2019.
Very.
It's interesting, sort of how few players are left from 2019, especially for the Chiefs. You got just basically Mahomes, Kelsey, and Chris Jones. Obviously, Andy Reid, Kyle are still there. And for the Niners, it's a little bit longer of a list, but not terribly long. I mean, like you said, there's like Fred and Dre, Armstead, Bosa, Debo, and then on the offense, there's not a ton more other than Debo and Juszczyk, really. Wisnowski, our punter, but the whole offensive line is turned over. Our whole secondary is turned over. Most of our D-line is turned over. So, yeah, there's been some big changes. I mean, Ayuk wasn't drafted yet. So it's kind of interesting to see when we talk about revenge for the 49ers. There's not a ton of guys left that are trying to get that revenge, which is kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. And I'm a fan of Ayuk. I think a lot of us in Chiefs Kingdom are. He's a fun player to watch. And obviously we've had our struggles at wide receiver this season. So he's someone like, oh, he's a fun player to watch. Hopefully you guys will re-sign him. But if not, I think we'd all be interested.
There you go. Yeah. I mean, I think he's a priority for us. We usually prioritize one player per off season. Last year was Bosa. The year before it was Trent Williams. The year before that was Fred. So yeah, I do think that it will be Ayuk, and I've seen some stuff that matches that. But another player who might be available is Jennings. But I'm hoping we find a way to sign him too, because he's just such a dog as a run blocker, and he comes up with we call him third and Juwan because he makes so many great third down catches. And he had that leaping catch against the Lions where he just sort of stabbed the ball out of the air one-handed. It was a
Yeah, he's
huge.
underrated for sure.
Yeah, he is. He is, no doubt about it. I have a buddy who went to a Tennessee Titans game in Nashville a couple years back. The one that where Jimmy hurt his thumb. Yeah, it was. It was where he hurt his thumb, and they were all raving about Juwan Jennings. The University of Tennessee Volunteers fans, and he couldn't quite understand why, and now he finally does. So
yeah,
that's pretty cool stuff.
You guys have our guy Chris Conley as well.
Yes, Chris Conley. He had a great camp for us. I went to all 9 open camp practices that the 49ers had at Levi's. And Conley was one of my training camp showouts. I thought he might make the 53-man roster. And I'm glad to see that he had the big catch against the Packers and on that game-winning drive. Hey, he's tall, he's fast, something that you can't really say about any of the other 49ers receivers. It was like Conley. Ayuk was like the superstar of camp. But Kinlaw also was another one who had a really big camp, and he's been playing pretty well of late. He showed up on that second 4th down failed conversion by the Lions, the 4th and 3. He pressured Goff, and anytime you pressure Goff, he tends to make bad decisions. So a lot of credit to Kinlaw on that play for sure.
Yeah.
See, how is Spags going to control CMC on the run?
I think that's going to be our biggest challenge. I think the Chiefs defense on the running side of the ball has been not great. I don't think that's any secret. I don't just live on Twitter. I have a great podcast. You should check it out. But no, I think CMC, he's fantastic, right? He's going to make plays. He's going to get yards on us. That's no secret. He's the best running back in the league right now, one of the best to ever do it, in my opinion. So he's going to be a big challenge for us. We played you guys last season in the regular season when you guys just acquired him. And I think he had like 2 days of practice. And he still did pretty well. We did beat you guys pretty well in that game. But overall, I mean, you're leaps and bounds different from that team, even. That was just last season. So I think CMC, that's going to be probably our team's biggest challenge. Now, I will say what's weird to me was the Ravens game where they had like one of the best running offenses in the entire league all season long. And then out of nowhere, they just completely abandoned the run, which didn't make any sense to me, especially with the way our passing defense is and where we don't really allow any yards to any receivers or like any big explosive plays. We allowed one explosive play to Flowers this past game. But aside from that, I mean, our defense doesn't allow too much with Snead and McDuffie back there and even Watson and Williams. So I think CMC is going to be our biggest challenge from your guys' offense. He's just a phenomenal player. He's going to get his yards. I imagine he'll get a touchdown on us. So I don't know. I think they're going to have to stack the box. They're going to have to give you guys some different looks, some stuff that maybe makes Brock Purdy a little bit uncomfortable, maybe with running the ball or I don't know. But yeah, CMC is going to be, I think, our defense's biggest challenge going into this game.
Yeah, no, there's definitely some thought to that. I couldn't figure out why the Ravens didn't run myself. And Zay Flowers, I think, almost had a second huge play for the touchdown, but Snead punched the ball out right at the goal line or a yard before. It was a huge play. It was baffling to me to see the Ravens abandon the run. I get it that they've had some injuries to running backs, but they still had Gus Edwards and I'm blanking on their other running back's name. Justice Hill. Yeah. So I mean, Gus is sort of like a power back, and Justice Hill is sort of like your one-cut speed back. Combined with Lamar, that's enough to get things done, you would think. But
just their game plan made no sense.
Not at all. No, and
the defense still did pretty well, but of course.
No doubt. And I would add to CMC, I would add Debo in there just because he'll get his share of like jet sweeps and reverses. Right. and I think those can be tough to defend. And he may even get some carries out of the backfield too. We've done that sometimes as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the one area that I am holding out hope for the 49ers against the Chiefs defense, because the pass defense is stout. You've got Chris Jones and Karlaftis on the D line. Bolton's a hell of a linebacker. Snead and McDuffie in the secondary. And so there's a lot of talent at every level of that Chiefs defense. It's a lot, and let's be honest, even without a ton of talent, Spags does a great job of scheming, of disguising blitzes, confusing quarterbacks. You had talked about the game last year in 2022 at Levi's, where the Chiefs won. The things I would say about that game are, one, Jimmy G was quarterback. I mean, technically Purdy came in and mop up time and threw an interception, but the game was already over at that point. Right. And that was his first ever NFL action as well. And then, the Niners were kind of walking wounded for that game. We had a lot of people play that I'm not going to say they shouldn't have, but they certainly weren't 100%. Starting with Nick Bosa had a pulled groin. Charvarius Ward had a pulled groin. Jimmy Ward was in his first game back of the entire season, so he was rusty. And not, in addition to that, he had broken his hands. So he was playing with a club on one hand, which is very difficult for a defensive back. And then Dre Greenlaw got injured early in the second quarter in that game.
Right. Yeah.
Both our tackles were
Hufanga, right? I think he had a pick on Mahomes, I believe.
Hufanga had an early pick in the game. And he's obviously out now. We have Jair Brown, the rookie safety, who came in and started to fill in, started to look like there's going to be no drop off, but then sort of rookie ways showed up in the last few games. So we even started Logan Ryan against the Green Bay Packers, but he clearly doesn't have much tread left on the tires. So we decided we'd rather have the mistakes from someone who at least can deliver physically like Jair Brown can. Like both our tackles when we played last were dinged up. McGlinchey had a strained calf, and Trent Williams sort of came back early from a high ankle sprain to play. I think there was some other stuff too going on, but ultimately, like you said, CMC had only a practice and a half before the game. He got a lot of carries in the game.
He did, actually, more than I expected, I think.
More than any other running back for the 49ers. But I will say we ran out of plays for him in the second half. And so, they say Andy Reid has Kyle's number. I can't argue. He's 3-0 against Kyle. I would just say that, the one was 2018 when we weren't that good. And also Jimmy tore his ACL. I don't think Jimmy would have won the game if he had stayed healthy in that game, but I think it would have been closer. Obviously, the Super Bowl, hats off there to the Chiefs. And then, this last one in 2022, the main thing I would just say is that Andy Reid's 0-0 against Brock Purdy starting as a quarterback for the 49ers. And he is definitely better than Jimmy G. I can see why people say the game manager thing. It's because of our super weapons. I think we have the best weapons of any team in the NFL.
We do, for sure.
Yeah, and our weapons group. I mean, not all of them are the best
as a whole.
As a whole, as a collective. And so I get that. But my pushback against calling him a game manager, even last year when people were calling him Dink and Dunk in the Niners content creation community, I pushed back a little bit just because he was so good at the 10 to 19 yard passes, 80% completion rate at that range. And now, because my knocks on him were he didn't throw a good deep ball last year and he didn't run deep. Like he would scramble, but he wouldn't get a lot of yards scrambling. It would be like he'd juke the first guy and then he'd get run down from behind. Now he's getting deep runs and deep throws. And so that makes it even tougher to call him a game manager. I also don't call him elite, though, just so people know. I've said like that his play has been at an elite level at certain times this season, but there's been too much volatility and sort of not enough distance between the volatility. Obviously if he manages to win the Super Bowl, it'll be hard not to call him elite, but I'm waiting until that happens before I, make any decisions. And I really think it's a coin flip. I think, Vegas sort of thinks it is. We're favored by 2. It opened with, I think we're opened at 1.5, dropped to 1. Now we're up to 2. At least last I saw. I should probably double check that. But it does seem like it's a very even game, different than last time where you guys were the number 1 offense. Now we're the number 1 offense, but the Chiefs defense is really good. And the Niners defense has been struggling here in the playoffs, both against Green Bay and against the Lions. One thing I will say is that they do have really good offensive lines. In the Chiefs kind of do too, when like Thuney is healthy. You guys have maybe the best interior offensive line with Thuney, Creed Humphrey, and Trey Smith.
Right.
But I don't know about as a 5-person offensive line, when you throw the Chiefs tackles in there, I don't know that you can still make that same argument. But I guess Allegretti filled in really well for Thuney.
Allegretti actually had he was the highest rated pass blocker this past game against the Ravens, which is pretty good because they were targeting him a lot. But Allegretti has been in our system for about 5 years now, and so he definitely knows what to do, and he can kind of fill in at any role we need him on the O-line, which is a really, really good guy to have on there. But Thuney, I mean, he's all pro. He's one of the best, if not the best guard in the league, or left guard in the league right now. He's up there for sure. So, but I know he didn't practice today, but Andy Reid didn't quite rule him out yet. They said there's still a possibility he could play. So we'll just take that day by day. I don't really know what to expect from that. But overall, I will say if Allegretti has to go, I think he'll do a fine job of filling in. Everyone knows our tackles have struggled a bit, like you said. Like Donovan Smith, he's been good. He's had his issues. He's had his injuries. And our rookie, Wanye Morris, had to step in, and he actually did a pretty good job. He had a few, welcome to the NFL rookie moments, but other than that, he's done a pretty good job. And then Jawan Taylor, who we signed off the Jaguars last season or for this season, he's actually pretty good at his job. He just had a lot of those false starts, which I think he was famously known for pretty much all season long. And he really has cleaned that up, I will say, in these last few weeks, especially here in the playoffs. I think he's maybe been penalized once. And then Donovan Smith has been penalized once. But really, they've cleaned up a lot of their penalties and that kind of thing. So overall, I mean, Patrick Mahomes didn't take a sack until this past weekend against the Ravens. But other than that, they've been a pretty solid O-line. So not too many there. Yeah. We do tend to throw in Allegretti for some fun trick plays. So you never know. It depends, I think, on Joe Thuney's health and how that all goes. Because Andy Reid, as much as he loves his trick plays, they haven't been going quite as well for us this season. So I don't think he's going to risk it unless he feels really good about it. But in the Super Bowl, you never know.
I just remember he kind of jet sweeped us to death in that 2022 game. I want to say there was like 3 jet sweeps.
Yeah, McCole Hardman was like the killer that game.
He was. He tore our hearts out absolutely on the goal line a few times.
3 touchdowns, which is crazy.
Yeah, Nikos was also saying Prudy going to do a lot of play action. I mean, that's the plan for the 49ers, is to run the ball and then run play action off the run. So, typically that's a key for us. It was one of my concerns going into the Lions game for the NFC Championship game, was that the Lions have a really, really good run defense, and teams that have defend the run well typically do well at slowing our offense down. I will say with Jimmy G, a great run D was like a death sentence. With Purdy, he can sling it. It's just that our offensive line, a lot of people think it's really good because we have Trent Williams, but he's only one of 5, and the rest of the guys are all kind of like half linemen. Like Aaron Banks can run block, but he's not a very good pass blocker. Our left guard, our center, Jake Brendel, can pass block really well, but unless he's like running way downfield for a run block, he's not a good run blocker like off the line. He just doesn't have that much power.
Yeah.
Feliciano, he's doing really well for us.
Pretty good
for a guy we got off the street.
Yeah. You never know. Look, you never know.
But he's a guy off the street, and then McKivitz has done pretty well filling in for McGlinchey at right tackle. But he's not nearly the run blocker that McGlinchey was.
Were you a big McGlinchey fan?
More than I didn't hate him as much as the rest of the people did, because I appreciated his run blocking. And towards the end last year, his pass blocking got a lot better too. I think because it was a contract year, probably. And he did get paid. I definitely was not sad that we didn't pay him $17.5 million. I thought that was too much, but I thought he was probably worth 12 or 13 out there on the open market. The good news for us was we got McKivitz because he was restricted. We got him for 2 years, 4.5, so only 2.25 per year, which is insanely low for a starting tackle in the NFL. So we have a really cheap tackle and a really cheap QB with Purdy at $800K per year, and so that allows us to overspend on a lot of positions like Fred, like Kittle, like Debo. Obviously, Bosa just signed the richest non-QB contract in the NFL. You can't have all those types of guys paying a quarterback and a right tackle a lot. So for their money, they're great. But yeah, I mean, I hope we see a lot of play action. That's really helpful for us if that works. If the run game works, or even if the run game doesn't work, you don't have to be effective running the ball. You just have to make the defense respect the run. And then, hopefully Purdy can run some himself to make you guys spy him, because once Detroit started spying Purdy, that's when our pass game opened up a little bit more against them.
Right. I was impressed actually with Purdy's running ability in this last game. I didn't know he quite had that in him. So that was good to see from Purdy. But I feel like our defense is pretty battle tested right now between Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, because those are two big running quarterbacks.
Yeah, I'll say.
And they did get a few runs on us, but I feel like we held him off pretty well, and we should get our guy Willie Gay back, we tend to use him as a spy. We lost him pretty early in the Bills game and then didn't have him for the Ravens game. So he would be a big addition for us to have back. If we do, but I don't know that they'll spy Purdy a ton. I don't even feel like we spied Lamar Jackson a ton, but it also depends who you have on the field, and Willie Gay is kind of that guy for us. So I think it just kind of depends how the game flows. The good thing about our defense and Spags is they're really good at adjusting at halftime. So if something's not working in that first half, they've adjusted, and especially these playoffs, they've adjusted every single game. And I think the most points they've given up is like 3 in the second half.
It was 3 in the fourth quarter. Yeah, it's
3
crazy.
and 7. Yeah. Fourth quarter, that's 7 against the Bills. Yeah.
And that's wild.
Miami did nothing against us. However, I was at that game and I froze. So
it looked pretty cold. No doubt about it.
Was
it like minus 30 wind chill or something crazy like that?
I've never experienced anything like that.
Which is about 50 degrees colder than Tua's ever played in. I think he played in a 20-degree game in high school. Yeah. He grew up in Seattle, I guess, up in the Pacific Northwest. And so, I definitely, Purdy definitely has played some cold weather at Iowa State. Well, not that it matters. We're in the Super Bowl now. It's indoors.
Right now, it doesn't matter,
Allegiant. How bummed are the Raiders fans that their first postseason game there has the Chiefs and Niners painted on their end zones, like two of their most hated teams.
Yeah,
they hated us from being the big brother in the Bay, and you guys for being the big brother in the AFC West.
I mean, they haven't. Since they moved to Vegas, they have not beat us in Vegas. Now, they did beat us bad in Arrowhead this past season, or this past Christmas. But they have not beaten us in their own stadium, and now we're going to be playing in their Super Bowl and against you guys, which is pretty hilarious to me. That's gotta not be very fun for Raiders fans.
There you go. Carcast is in the house. He has his own channel. Make sure you check him out. He says, "Oh, by the way, Chiefs line hold a lot." They definitely did in the last Super Bowl.
To me, is like, I think the Chiefs get so picked apart on referee calls that I don't see that happen to any other team. And I think if you dissected these other games to the level that people dissect Chiefs games, I think you would find there's almost holding on every single play. They're just going to call it if it's like really egregious or not. Yeah. I see another comment saying better call it against Bosa. Chris Jones gets held on nearly every single play he makes as well, and it's really not called too often. So
Bosa, Jones, Micah Parsons,
Micah
TJ
Parsons,
Watt, all the best guys, Miles Garrett.
They get held, and that's just how it goes.
Happens to all of them for sure.
I mean, as a Chiefs fan, I hope it's fairly called, because my least favorite thing is after a win to hear all the complaints about the refs and we only win because of refs and blah, 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 blah. And it's not fun to hear all the time. So I hope it's fairly called. I mean, that's all I can say.
Well, it's Bill Vinovich, who was there last Super Bowl and who also officiated the Ravens game, our Ravens game on Christmas Day.
Oh, yeah, we on Christmas Day, huh?
We got penalized a lot. And you know, it's funny about that game. Everybody's like, "Oh, the Ravens are going to smoke the Niners in the Super Bowl or whatever." And obviously, they didn't make it. But even if they did, I wouldn't be that worried about the Ravens, just because, you know, Purdy had 3 tipped balls in that game that got intercepted, and tipped balls typically get intercepted like a 3 or 4% rate. So to have 3 get intercepted is incredibly rare, especially since one of them
game for your team.
Yeah. Yeah, especially because one of them, the guy came through Kittle's back, you know, played through from behind, and so like that's a defensive pass interference if it's being called correctly. So, bottom line is, I mean, I think, you know, I knew that playing the Ravens, you know, once you guys were in the championship game, the Ravens or the Chiefs was going to be tough. I did want the Chiefs just because I want revenge. I mean, they're technically both revenge games because the Ravens beat us in 2012 in the Super Bowl, but you know, Mahomes is still there, right? And Flacco's now, it was a Brown most recently. Who knows where he'll be next year? And it's just not the same. There's no Ravens left from that, and so like the chair, you know, we still got Mahomes,
more of a revenge.
Still got Kelsey, we still got Chris Jones, obviously Andy Reid.
Yeah.
So even if we had less chance of winning, it was more chance of feeling like redemption or whatever. And you know what they say, like, you got to beat the best to be the best. And so
absolutely,
yeah. So Nico says, good thing it's Vegas. Chiefs Kingdom flag is buried under the stadium.
Oh, yeah. Have you heard that story?
No, I hadn't.
We had a guy, I'm blanking on his name right now, but there was a guy that was a Chiefs fan that was working on building that stadium, constructing it, and he had a Chiefs flag he held up kind of famously in front of it, and he buried it under the stadium.
Oh, there was a story like that for Levi's. The same thing with the Seahawks fan was there, and they buried something. But like whatever it is, it turned out to be good luck in the playoffs because we're 6-0 now at Levi's in the playoffs.
Yeah, you guys are. The Seahawks haven't stood a chance. Hang on one second. I'm going to mute real quick.
Yeah, sure. So just so everybody knows,
I'm getting a bit of a cold.
No, yeah. I was going to say, just so everybody knows, Lexi's feeling a little bit under the weather, so she may have to mute to cough or sneeze or whatever she needs to do. So I'm just thankful that she felt good enough that she could come on and still do the show. So thank you, Lexi, for that. So I didn't know that about the flag. Interesting. Heard Parsons running his mouth about Jerry Jones going all in. Dumbass really saying it's our year. People haven't even replaced their TVs. Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I think a lot of Cowboys fans feel like Dan Quinn leaving is addition by subtraction. He really didn't do a very good job. I mean, you just saw in that Packers game, guys running wide open. There's like no defender in the frame. Like, I don't know how you could be happy with him. And I know they lost Trayvon Diggs early in the season, but you know, they still had Gilly and Deron Bland played really well. I mean, I think he was all pro, wasn't he, or something, or all Pro Bowl?
Yeah, he was all, I think both.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely I think led the league in interceptions.
He had a rough game though against the Packers, Deron Bland.
He did. And he had a rough game before that too, where like he was getting picked on pretty mercilessly. He did get an interception, but like they were definitely going after him. I think it was the last game of the season. It might have been. I forgot who it was.
The Commanders, I think. Maybe
it was the Commanders. Mahomes is playing. I'll have something to cry about. Oh boy.
I think it's so funny how Mahomes, like, I feel like he's one of the most respected guys in the league. Then he had that game against the Bills this season, and then everyone's like, "Oh, I lost all respect for him. He's such a crybaby." I'm like, a lot of quarterbacks cry for flags. A lot of quarterbacks do that kind of stuff.
Well,
he's pretty fair. But
a lot of 49ers fans complain that Purdy doesn't get flags, especially like in this Lions game. There was like a late hit that was a helmet-to-helmet hit when he was on the ground by James Houston, came in and cheaped him. And then the worst one was when his longest run of the game, he did a head-first slide, and the guy who was running with him tagged him. So he was down as soon as he hit the ground. And then this big old number 93 comes over and literally jumps on him and slides off. And then Chris Branch comes over and jumps up in the air and like kicks him in the knee and shreds his sock, and no call. And people are saying, well, maybe Purdy should bitch a little more, So
yeah, I mean, sometimes you just have to.
Yeah, no, I mean, whatever it takes to get the refs.
Purdy might learn that for next season,
Yeah, no, I mean, I honestly I can see why people say that about Mahomes some, but also at the same time, I think you gotta advocate for yourself.
You really do, and he's learned that over the years. I mean, he didn't used to cry for flags like that, and I wouldn't call him a crybaby. I think there's certain hits he'll take, and he'll be fine with it. But there was like a hit this last game in the Ravens game where he was completely clotheslined by, I think it was number 98 or something, and I mean, the guy nearly took his head off. So of course that's going to get called. You can't do stuff like that. So.
Yeah, you got to advocate for yourself because no one else is going to do it.
The thing is, during the regular season, Mahomes, I think he had maybe 1 or 2 roughing the passer calls total. So he doesn't get them like everyone thinks. I think I don't know. But
Interesting. It's good to know.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I like to have Chiefs insiders on, because you guys are experts on your team. He says, I got your Niners winning the Super Bowl because I can't stand Taylor Swift. There's definitely a lot of that out there.
Don't be hard on her.
No, I mean, I like Taylor Swift fine. I feel like she's had trouble with love in the past. If she's found it with Travis, then more power to her.
I wasn't like a huge Swiftie or anything. I mean, I like her music. I've seen her in concert before. But I know a lot of that group and stuff, and they all seem to really like her. Like all of his friends really like her. I think she's been a good person for him. So I don't have too much problem with it. I understand it can be annoying to see her on the TV that much, but really, if you really think about it, I think they said she was on the screen for like 44 seconds this last game. So, I mean,
so is that like 22 times? No, I'm just kidding.
I think it was like 6 or 7. So
there you go. My wife and I went to go see her.
In the world. I mean, if it was like Beyonce, they'd be showing her. You know what I mean? It's just like, what are you gonna do?
I get it.
So.
My wife and I went and saw her movie. I couldn't afford to see her concert. Those tickets were
I couldn't either.
Outrageous at Levi's. I think they were like minimum. I think it was as expensive as the NFC Championship game. I think they were like $2,500.
Yeah.
On average, or maybe it was minimum. So maybe even more than the NFC Championship game, which is wild to me.
At Arrowhead, I think I had friends spend like $800 a piece. Like, wow. Goodness.
I will say, if anyone goes to see the movie, like it's a 3-hour-long movie, which is a little too long. And like the last hour, I don't think you're missing anything if you bug out after 2 hours in that one. But it was definitely worth seeing, I would say. Especially now they have these movie theaters out here where they have like reclining seats, and they like deliver food to your chairs for you. Like you walk in, it's like DoorDash has already brought your stuff. It's like pretty nice setup. So a good way to watch a concert when you start to get older. Like I'm 53, so I'm not going to be going to too many more big stadium shows anymore.
Also, I think that's hilarious that guy's name was Chad, because Taylor had an interview where she said, all the dads, Brads, and Chads that are mad about me being there.
There you go. Well, maybe he did that on purpose.
Right.
Yeah. There's definitely some fun YouTube handles on here for sure. There's this guy named Stevo Supremo who's a Niners fan. He's got like 8 handles, and he pops in all the time. He even made one for my dog. My dog's name is Hamilton, and it was called Hamilton Talks Ball.
Oh, cute.
That was real cute. But Nico says, how many celebrities do you think will be at the Super Bowl? Wow. I mean, a lot.
Really a lot.
Thousands, right? I mean, you got to figure. I guess it depends on where your cutoff is for celebrity, but I mean, certainly hundreds of big ones. It's
I think all the typicals, right? I mean, who are your like celebrity Niner fans? Who are your biggest? Some in Chiefs Kingdom for sure.
Yeah, no, for Niners, who's the guy who played Hawkeye? I'm trying to remember his name for the Marvel. I'm blanking on his name. Jeremy Renner, I think, is one of the bigger 49ers celebrity folks. There aren't like a ton of really big Niner celebrity.
Really? I would have thought there
out there.
Interesting.
No.
We have Paul Rudd.
Yeah, there
Jason
you go.
Sudeikis, Eric Stone Street, Rob Riggle, Tech Nine. We have some fun ones.
I mean, we have E40 the rapper. He definitely shows up
a
lot of Niner games and Warriors games as well too.
I had a little Twitter banter going on with Richard Sherman.
Richard Sherman has turned into just the hugest Niners homer out there.
He really has.
After we all hated him with the Aaron Andrews incident, never would have expected that. But the Seahawks, he felt like they did him wrong, and he felt like we did him right. And he even though he doesn't have a ring with us and he does with them, he's like, I don't care. I'm a Niner fan for life. So yeah, no, he's a big one for sure. Maybe there's more I'm not thinking of. If anybody thinks of any. Oh, Shamar Moore. Yeah.
Shamar Moore.
Shamar, and I think Shamar is like pretty close to my age too, because we were in a soccer camp together at Stanford.
Oh, nice.
As kids. He must be 50-ish.
Yeah, he's probably around that age.
Yeah. Anyway, yeah. I definitely
big fan of that show.
There you go. He's definitely a good looking fella, no doubt about that.
Right. Definitely.
Dr. Disrespect, yeah, the big gamer guy. He's like 6'6" or 6'8".
I've heard of him. Yeah.
Famously threw a really deep ball in training camp, so he's got a pretty good arm too. But I don't know, he's not on par with those other ones that we were kind of talking about. I maybe in the gaming world, but not in like the Hollywood world.
Yeah,
Mark Brenner, yeah. So Ted likes here because I mean, my wife took me. Let's get that straight. She's the Taylor Swift fan. I was just the husband on a date night.
Taylor Swift. So
I think it was actually our anniversary night. We went to dinner and saw the Taylor Swift movie. I mean, I also went and saw like the Barbie movie with her.
Yeah.
And I was pleasantly surprised. I kind of, that movie was better than I thought it would be. I'm not gonna say it was great or anything, but definitely better and more entertaining. I left there. I was like, hey, that was fun. If you're going on a date night, like you could do a lot worse, I think.
Totally. Absolutely.
As long as it's not a rom-com, I'm probably going to be happy. So. Tony Romo played Jessica Simpson on TV. Nobody complained.
Yeah.
Tucker was going kick Mahomes. It's funny.
I love banter like that before games. I think it's hilarious. So I don't know why people have problems with it, but
no, me neither. It's all fun. Like there's definitely a lot of banter with Eminem when he was out here for the championship game, and I was just saying, that the Lions lost themselves in a few key moments in the game. Otherwise, they were pretty good. They definitely. I was nervous in the first half. Like I was reassuring people, but at the same time, I was like, I'm basing this off of what I've seen in the Packers game and the season, not anything I'd seen in the Lions game so far.
Lions are a good team, but
yeah. I mean, like in my article, I was like, hey, one thing though, Dan Campbell, like going for it all the time, that may work fine against the average NFL defense, but we are not the average NFL defense.
Right.
And that definitely came true. Atomic Elbow from Ravens 98. There you go. Players don't cry, or football players, not football. Soccer players flop though.
Say that about NBA a little bit too.
Right. So I kind of was working my way up there. I got a little behind. Let's see here. Randy, Elite Daytona in the house. He says it's too damn early, Ted. And he calls himself Elite Daytona because he was early to say that Brock Purdy is elite. And like I said, I'm still not quite there. I'm getting closer all the time, but I just feel like to say someone's an elite quarterback, I need to see it for a longer period of time. And in this situation that we have, I said either you got to win it all or you got to win with less. And he had the chance to win with less there when Debo and Trent Williams were out, and we didn't. And so, like, I'm close, just not quite ready to say the E word. Sherman is captain of the BPA, Brock Protection Agency. Yes. Sherman, Kurt Warner, Matt Leinart, I noticed, has jumped into the fray.
Yeah, I saw
that. And then you got the haters. You got like
Newton's a big hater.
Shannon Sharp, Cam Newton, Nick Wright, who we like to call Nick Wrong out here. He's a huge Mahomes.
He's a homer.
Yeah, he's a huge LeBron fan too.
Yeah.
He's a good arguer, though. I'll give him that. He definitely makes good points.
I think it's hilarious, but I know I can understand why people would find him annoying.
Well, especially after he was like saying that James Harden was better than Steph Curry and stuff like that. Like, because see, we already hated him from the Warriors.
Yeah.
LeBron and Warriors and Houston stuff. And so like now he but he's always been a Chiefs fan. But that's frustrating as well too.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? There you go. Randy says you're the most attractive guest I've ever had.
Wow, that's a compliment.
Praise. Thanks, Randy. Who's more of a flopper, Mahomes or Neymar? I don't think Mahomes is a flopper, honestly. I think, like we said, he kind of cries a little bit, but there's a difference.
I don't think he flops too much.
I don't think so. I don't know. Guess we'll keep our eye out for it.
Hits you just can't make on a quarterback, right?
Yep. No doubt about it. So we've talked a little bit about the Niners offense against the Chiefs defense. What about the Chiefs offense against the Niners defense? Because the Niners run defense has been exposed recently by both the Packers and the Lions. Right. Honestly, we kind of could have seen it coming from the season, because while we had high or favorable run rankings during the season, a lot of it was just because we were beating every game we won the season was by 10 or more points, and so we would get up on these teams and they couldn't run it against us. So we had very few rush attempts, and we lost a lot of really good run stuffers from last year. We lost, let's see here, Ebicom was a really good run stuffing edge. Aziz Al-Shire was a really good strong side linebacker, run stuffer. Emmanuel Mosley was a really good run fitting corner. And then, of course, Jimmy Ward, probably the biggest one of all, big hitter, enforcer. So, and then obviously Hufanga too, since the Bucks game.
No, that's
Jair Brown's a big hitter. He's kind of a clone of Hufanga in a lot of ways. It's just he's not as good and experienced, and and Hufanga wasn't great as a rookie either. So he didn't really come on until his second season.
Big flashes for sure, but
yeah, and so we've lost a lot of, and then also from a schematic standpoint, we lost D'Amico Ryans, and we replaced him with Steve Wilkes, who's more of a secondary guy. And he, a lot of times this season, has erred on the side of this almost like quasi-prevent defense with our guys way off the ball. And I just really think we're better off when we have our corners on press man coverage, because like you said, Mooney Ward is a press man corner. That's where he's going to shine. And we saw it against the Lions in the first half. Kyle said, like, the gaps are too big in our zone. And in the second half, we tightened it up, and the defense played a lot better. So,
yeah, no, I think we know Ward pretty well, obviously, because he was a Chief and he was under Spags. So I feel like we have a good feel for him. But there's no secret that our offense has had its struggles throughout the season. However, I do think this playoff run, they've kind of figured it out and found the guys they do trust, and Mahomes is going to go back to those guys. And Kelsey is really, I think he struggled a little bit here and there just with his injury and just kind of just being so triple covered and double covered all the time throughout the season, where I feel like now in the playoffs, he's kind of found his groove. So I think Kelsey's a big task for your guys' defense. I think Pacheco, I think he's gonna get his share. Like when we run at least 20 plus times, we tend to win the game. So I think Pacheco, and then CEH has kind of found his old self again. He's been that good 1-2 punch for us when Pacheco needs a rest. So I like how our run game matches up against your defense. I think both sides of I should say like your run game versus our defense versus our run game versus your defense. I think both are going to be really favorable matchups for our run games. And I think our defenses are going to have their work cut out for them. I think Pacheco, he's just going to run you into the ground as much as he can. And he's a hard guy to stop. I mean, the Ravens kind of figured it out in the second half last week, but I think, yeah, that should be, I'm really looking forward to seeing how that kind of matches up for us. And then our wide receivers, as long as they can just find some separation, and I feel like Mahomes is pretty good at throwing them open. So as long as we can get those guys working, we need MVS on his best. We need Justin Watson. And I don't know that we're going to see Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore back in the Super Bowl, which is so funny because they were huge for us last season in the Super Bowl. But then this year, they've just been struggling like crazy. And then Richie James has really found his stride. So, yeah, I don't know.
We know Richie James.
Yeah.
Well, I just think,
and Rashee Rice, of course. So Rashee Rice has been probably our biggest surprise, biggest high point of our offense this season. For a rookie to do that well in our offense this year is pretty phenomenal. So I think he's going to be one of my X factors for the game.
Yeah, second only to maybe Puka Nacua as far as rookie receivers. He came on strong at the end.
Well, too, on the Ravens. He really did well, too. But.
Yeah, no, that's true. They did. Maybe those two are 2A and 2B. And then as far as MVS goes, yeah, I mean, he's had huge catches right against the Bills and the Ravens to ice both of those games, right? So but other than that,
during the regular season,
he kind of dropped some big ones during the regular season, though, too. So
a few games, yeah.
So which MVS will we get? That's maybe an X factor for the game right there. That could be it. If he holds on, that could be it. If he doesn't, that could be it for sure. And then I would throw out Noah Gray as another X factor.
Yes, we love Noah Gray.
He is awfully good. I mean, obviously Kelsey is the star, but Noah Gray, you guys have run a lot of 2 tight end sets with them, is my understanding.
And I think what's been working well for us too is the 3 tight end sets when we throw in Blake Bell as well. He's not great at receiving at all, but he's really good at blocking and kind of running those plays. He knows the scheme well, so
it's important to block.
Yeah,
tight end for sure. Yeah, I think Pacheco will do well. I think, like I said, I don't think the Chiefs O-line is maybe as good as the Packers or Lions O-lines, but I do think that Mahomes' ability to scramble and his ability to throw deep kind of keeps one safety back out of the box and one of the people in the box with eyes on him, rather than defending one of your weapons. And so that will give Pacheco just like a step advantage on that player. So, I would not be surprised to see Isaiah Pacheco have a big game. Based on what we've seen. I mean,
we should have big games.
I mean, Aaron Jones did, David Montgomery did, Jahmyr Gibbs probably would have.
Jones, man, he went off.
Yeah. Well, which is not surprising to me because I feel like he's one of the best running and receiving backs in the NFL.
Yeah.
Right. Just maybe one step behind CMC, but just very much in that same conversation for sure. Randy says he loves that the Christmas tree is still up.
It stays up until the Chiefs lose. That's my rule the last few years.
There you go. Well,
it stays up for now.
So then if you guys, but it comes down either way after the Super Bowl, right? I mean,
Oh yeah. That's when the season's over.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, we've been lucky enough to be in a lot of the last Super Bowls, so it's just kind of my tradition now as I keep my tree up.
4 out of the last 5. It's pretty crazy.
Really crazy. Unprecedented, honestly.
No doubt about it. No KT, time for him to retire.
Kadarius Toney.
Oh, Kadarius Toney. I mean, didn't you guys put him on season-ending IR, or was it just for the last game? And then he's like, "I'm fine. It's like, shut up, dude. We don't."
Yeah.
That's one of those addition by subtraction guys. Like, wasn't he the one that had the tip that was intercepted against the Lions in the season opener?
He had that multiple times this entire season. Yeah. The first game was against the Lions, where everyone was watching that. He had, I think, 3 huge misses that game. 2 of them,
at least 2 drops,
2 of them resulting in interception.
And the pick, that's what I said. When people were like, "Oh, the Chiefs are cooked," and I was like, "Dude, they had no Chris Jones. All Mahomes has is Kelsey.
We didn't even have Kelsey the first game. Kelsey or Chris."
Okay, that's right. And then Kadarius Toney pretty much single-handedly lost that game for them.
Really did.
It's rare that really does happen, but I really felt like he did in that game.
He did, and then the last game he played for us was against the Patriots, and he once again, I mean, the ball was right in his chest, and he just turned too quick, and it ended up in another interception. And it's just been frustrating with him. I don't know quite what the issue is, but he just, for whatever reason, it's just not been clicking for him whatsoever this season. I mean, even he had, you probably remember, I think it was the Buffalo Bills we played, and this was a few weeks ago, not the playoffs, but when they played at Arrowhead. And Kelsey had that game-winning, he made a really great play, threw it, lateraled it to Kadarius Toney. Yeah. Kadarius Toney was offsides, and it started all that offensive offside stuff. But I mean, it's just been one thing after the next with him, and he just cannot figure out for whatever reason. So
brutal.
I don't know that we'll see him. I mean,
there was so much
Super Bowl for us last year, but I don't know that that's going to happen again this year.
There was so much high hopes for him coming out of Florida. I remember he was like going to be the next Debo. If I had $1 for every time I heard that.
Right. I know.
But
had his moments, like when he.
I do like to say Debo's one of one. So good luck with that.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
So all right. I think we've got our scouting report on Chiefs offense versus Niners D. All right, here's my thing. Like, I always like to, not be a homer and just be like, hey, here's my concerns for the 49ers, right? Right guard is a concern for us. Feliciano is better than Burford, but he definitely was in Purdy's lap some in the first half there. Some of those missed throws, including the interception early in the game, were more on the O-line than on Purdy, I would say. And our right tackle, McKivitz, we can be had there for sure. Also, I like to say with Purdy, we love his poise. Like, even in the offseason when I said, he's got limited height, limited arm, limited top speed, I always said, like, he's a mental giant. He's great with anticipation, leadership, everything else that you really look for in a quarterback. And poise is definitely one of those things. Pocket presence.
Huge.
But I will say, like, his poise can bite him too, to where, like, he's so good at keeping his attention downfield that sometimes things happen. Like, we love it. Yeah. And like, he needs to pay a little more attention to that guy coming off the edge untouched. It happened in the Packers game. I don't recall if it happened in the Lions game as well too. I think it kind of did a little bit with Ifeani Melifonwu, or however you say his name, their tall safety who blitzed. Purdy didn't really see him, but he was able to duck and get out of the tackle, and he threw it to Juice. But like, you'd like to see him pay attention to that a little bit sooner to avoid him.
Great play though.
Rather than break the tackle or whatever. But yeah, that's so like, that's one of my concerns on offense for us, is his poise. Like, it's a great thing most of the time, but it can scare you to death too. And then on defense, Ambry Thomas is a concern. Plus, he hurt his ankle in the last game. I think he'll be all right, but he got really abused, let's just say, in the Packer game. All three of the biggest plays in the game were against him.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
whether they were blown coverages or penalties. And then Jerry Brown, we already kind of talked about him. Mm-hmm. He's a rookie and he makes rookie mistakes. He takes bad angles. He's a big hitter. He's a ball hawk. He's a great blitzer, but he can get burned in coverage and he can take bad angles when it comes to tackling. So those are probably, and then on defense, Wilkes. If Wilkes plays this damn prevent defense, the shell, practically, yeah, I don't like that either. So we'll see. And then obviously Jake Moody as a kicker. So that was the next thing I was going to talk about was special teams. Obviously, I think everybody agrees Butker's better than Moody. How'd you guys punter? Pretty good?
Tommy Townsend, he's really good. He's been one of the best in the league, I would say. We really don't have too many issues with him at all. And he's good if you want to get a trick play in. Like, he's good. He can sling the ball. So if you want to get fake punt, he's really good at those. I think we've had 2 successful ones this season alone. So Tommy, he's good. He's a stone cold little killer back there. It's funny. He grew up with my brother-in-law. So my brother-in-law has known him since they were kids. So kind of just funny little backstory there. But yeah, we love Tommy. He's a great punter, great for us on special teams. He's very aware and will make a tackle if he needs. And then Butker, he's been phenomenal. He's missed, I think, 2 total field goals, one being in Foxborough this year, and then I can't remember where the other one was, but yeah, he's missed 2 field goals and that's it. And he's made every other kick and extra point and everything else. So Butker's been really, really clutch for us this season. And then special teams overall, I feel like Richie James, we've been using him as our punt returner, which I know you guys are familiar with him. Mm-hmm. So he's been really solid for us. He hasn't had any return to the house, but he's been really solid on that duty. So trust him there. Yeah, special teams overall has not been too much of a problem for us. I should knock on wood, right? But it's been pretty good for us. Always knock on wood. There you
go. Yeah. Can't be too safe with that.
Yeah. So unfortunately, injured reserve, so Charles Amenahue, who you guys obviously know as well, you guys just had him. He was really great for us this season when he was healthy, and a really big bummer that he went out this past game against the Ravens, because he actually had a really good strip sack on Lamar. He ended up in a huge play, and then a few plays later, he ended up, unfortunately, tearing his ACL, and he will be out. So I was really bummed for him because I know he was really excited to play the Niners in the Super Bowl and all that good stuff. But yeah, Charles Menahue's out for us. We have a few guys on IR, and we have a lot of injuries, but I think a lot of them are pretty minor. And the Chiefs are just really good about listing every minor detail on their injury report. So it might look really lengthy, but really it's like most of these guys are going to go. So
what about Thuney? Do you think he's out, right?
So that was one Andy Reid mentioned today in his press conference. He said he won't be practicing today, but he's not ruled out yet. So we just have to
wait and see.
Yeah.
It is a torn pec, though. So usually those are at least like
I would assume he probably won't go, but you never know.
Yeah. I guess it depends on what grade the tear is, right? It
right.
Depends. And how tough they are, right?
Right. We have a great staff. Tooney's not usually injured, so I'm hoping for the best with him. Obviously, you don't want to lose a guy like that, but not much you can do.
And then it looks like you said, Willie Gay is listed on there, but you feel confident that he might play.
I think he's going to play. Yeah, I think that's why we sat him versus the Ravens.
Okay.
So I think he will play. He practiced today, so that was good. Step in the right direction.
Yeah, that is.
I think it was limited, but still step in the right direction there.
All right. Who is Amenahue's replacement? Let's see what it says on the depth chart. It says
Mike
Uzomah.
Yeah, Felix. So Felix Anudike Uzomah, he was our first round pick this last year. He was out of K-State, so he's like grew up a Chiefs fan. It's kind of one of those fun picks, but he hasn't played a ton this year. He's done okay. But if he has to step up, he's going to have to step up well. And I like him. We just haven't seen enough of him. So that's Felix is kind
of. Or maybe they could switch Malik Herring over from the right side, maybe. I don't know. He's listed behind Karloftis on the right side.
Right.
So I don't know how.
Yeah. No, and Malik Herring, the problem is Charles Omenihu is not easily replaceable. You don't just he's really, really talented and has been really good on our D-line. He's not easily replaceable at all. So I think even some Chiefs fans were hoping that maybe we would sign a veteran that's kind of out there that's maybe wasn't signed to a team this year. Like we had Carlos Dunlap on our team last year, who he's a longtime veteran. We just didn't re-sign him this season, but I think a lot of people were like, oh, maybe we could re-sign him, or Frank Clark.
Bengals and Seahawks, right? Dunlap. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, him and Frank Clark both played for the Seahawks. And then he came to the Chiefs and both won with us. So I wouldn't mind seeing that. I don't think that's going to happen. So I think we're going to be stuck with FAU. George has been really, really good on the edge. So I think he's just going to get a ton of reps. I think Chris Jones can kind of go from interior to the edge. He kind of switches out throughout the line. So I think you're just going to see some different sets. And
ooh, Chris Jones against McKivitz. I don't like the sound of
that. Yeah. So aware of that. But.
Yeah, absolutely. What else was I going to say? There was something else. Yeah, man, he was a good player. We got him from the Texans, and then he got a nice contract with you guys. Oh, I know what I was going to say. When the Seahawks lost Uchenna Nwosu, and they were able to, you guys cut Frank Clark right around that time. And I was like, oh man, how lucky are the Seahawks that you guys cut.
Yeah.
But then out of 8 or 9 games, he only played 3 games. He didn't suit up for 6 or 7 games. And so I was like, oh, see this character issues guy. It didn't really show up while he was there, but it showed up before when he was a Seahawk, and when he went back to being a Seahawk, the character issues showed up. And that's what I would always tell. There were so many content creators. His name came up, so many times, Niners need another edge to go across from Bosa. Who's it going to be? Frank Clark? And I was like,
it's one of those names. Yeah.
We'll never sign Frank Clark because we don't do character issues ever since, basically, what's his bucket? The linebacker that we signed, that we drafted after Solomon Thomas, Reuben Foster. Ever since him, we drafted in 2017 and had all those issues, we're just we're not doing character issues anymore. So, we've missed out on a lot of good talent because of that, because there are a lot of good players that have questionable past or futures, and so questionable decision-making skills.
Interesting with the Chiefs too is we don't do a lot of character issues either, but when we do, I feel like Andy Reid is very good at handling those kind of guys. So with Frank Clark, he and Andy both grew up in a similar spot in LA. They had a lot of that kind of stuff in common. So I feel like he was kind of able to resolve those issues while Frank was here, specifically as a Chief. But I think he went to Denver for a few weeks in the off season, and then he didn't really do anything with them. Then, like you said, the Seahawks picked him back up. And I just think, and not everyone can handle everyone, so.
Oh, Denver. Oh, I see. All right. I got it wrong. All right. So that's right. That's right. The Broncos released him, and they traded Randy Gregory to us.
Yeah.
Who hasn't done much, I'll tell you what. Yeah. And we're up, as far as injuries goes, we're obviously missing Hufanga. And one that's sort of more under the radar, that it maybe not quite as big of a deal as Omenihu, but along a very similar idea, is Cleveland Farrell, who we got from the Raiders, who struggled a lot there he was picked 2 picks after Bosa in the 2019 draft and never lived up to that.
Right.
He was a really good depth piece for us. And I think a lot of this issue we've had with setting the edge in the run game in the playoffs has been because Cleveland Farrell's been out. So that's one that we are missing. Also, George Kittle didn't practice today with a toe. I don't think it's a big deal, but I was like, oh, that's why he was limping at the Warriors game. And so,
I have no doubt in my mind he will play. But
he will.
Yeah.
No doubt. I mean, he promised he'd be back. Don't forget.
Well,
so he
did. I remember.
He was.
He was right. I mean, you guys have been Niners have been a good team, just like the Chiefs. It's like you're always up there.
No, I mean, the two best teams over the last 5 years. It's just we don't have any rings to show for it yet. So hopefully we can fix that here. But it's going to be a hell of a game. Do you have a prediction for the game, Nikki? Pardon me.
Not quite yet. But if I was thinking of it earlier, just in case you asked, and I've kind of stayed similar throughout the entire playoff run. Of course, I'm going to go with Chiefs. I think it'll be close, but I'm going to go 24-27 Chiefs.
There you go. Yeah, no, I kind of like that score. I might go like 24-21 Niners. Yeah, I mean, I don't think either team is going to score over 30.
Yeah.
I think the defenses are too good. I predicted 17-14 for y'all against the Ravens.
Well, pretty close.
Yeah, and I said 31-24 for us against the Lions, and that was in play till pretty late in the game. So until they scored that TD right at the end. I guess it was 34. But anyway, I felt pretty good about both of those.
Yeah, pretty close.
We'll see. And then we got Marco V in the house. That's finished the sentence, Ted and Lexi. Your respective teams. My teams win if. All right.
For me, I think my team wins if we can contain Christian McCaffrey and challenge Brock Purdy very well on the defense. I think Spags shows a lot of different looks, and he's given a lot of really good quarterbacks a lot of trouble this season. So I think it's going to be a great challenge for Brock Purdy, and I'm excited to see how he does against our really good defense, because I think they've been underrated. And one other thing I just want to add is that my team wins if our wide receivers can hang on to the ball.
Yeah, the MVS factor, that's a huge one for me.
Yep.
Does MVS make the catches or not? Because you guys have lost when he hasn't, and you've won when he has. So, that's just a Chiefs thing. But, yeah, from a Niners perspective, the Niners win if we contain Kelsey and Pacheco, right? I mean, I think those two, and it's easier said than done. I do think, we do have two of the best linebackers in the NFL, so that gives us an advantage. I just wish we still had Jimmy Ward. He was great at covering tight ends for sure. Yeah. But I think, and that's the problem is we've got Dre and Fred, but one of them's probably gonna have eyes on Mahomes the whole time. So
I imagine Fred probably will, if I had to guess, right?
yeah, or Dre, just because he's such an enforcer.
Both really good.
He'll put a hurting on you if you do decide to run, but yeah, and can the Niners stop the run themselves? I think
that's our biggest challenge for both of our defenses.
Yeah, I think so. And just because the Chiefs, even with Allegretti, have an incredible interior offensive line, and Pacheco is powerful and fast. He's a great combo of those two traits.
He is, yeah.
And like you said, CEH is playing well, and with our luck, is Jet McKinnon even still playing much? Is he?
He's out with injury.
Okay, because he sure burned us in that last game. I know he had he had that huge play, and I was just where Bosa was so close to getting the sack, and then all of a sudden it was Jet McKinnon. I don't forget if it was a touchdown or what it was, but it was a huge gainer.
Yeah,
where it should have been almost like a sack or a loss, and I was like, God, Jet McKinnon never did a thing for us. We paid that guy $8 million a year, and he did nothing as a 49er. We let him go, and he just
I know you guys did not like him at all.
No, well, plus he said some bad things about us on the way out too. Or about the Niners. But that's kind of frustrating.
He was just one of those guys that was not great for every offense, but for some reason just worked really well in ours.
There you go. And this is why I said Nikki, because it's Nico. So your fault, Nikos. My apologies, Lexi. Again. So who gets the first pick six of the game? I mean, I'm gonna say I don't think there will be a pick six in the game.
If I had to give someone a defensive takeaway on our side, I would say I'm going to go either Snead or Willie Gay.
There you go.
Those would be guys.
Yeah, if I have to pick someone on our defense, because of course I would pick a Niner, not a Chief.
Of course.
I guess I'd go with Lenore. I was telling Lexi backstage, that he's been our best corner in in the playoffs, both last year and this year. Mooney Ward was our best corner during the regular season. He led the league in passes defended. I think he had 23 or 21, and the next guy was 3 or 4 or 5 below. So he was pretty outstanding there. And Wilkes did say he was one of the best corners this year. But Lenore, or I would go with like Gibson, who's this crazy safety that we got off the scrap heap before last season, and he has been just a star for us.
He has. He's been very good.
Including that, that forced fumble against Gibbs last week. And here, it's interesting. I was hearing something during the last week where people were saying, "Oh, the Niners scouted Gibbs, Jahmyr Gibbs, that is, as a fumble risk," and I was like, and then one of the Lions creators that I had on last week, Right or Wrong, Anthony Ryder 5, came on again this week to do a recap with me, and even after a loss, which is huge, I always respect that. And I guess that's something I should also mention to you, Lexi. If you would like to come on next week, or well, I guess it's in 2 weeks after the game to do a recap, I'm totally down to do that. I just always encourage people, set it up before the game, because if we lose, I might not be quite as eager to do it. And honestly, I probably would, but for sure, if it's locked in stone, then I'll be there.
Yeah.
But
figure it out.
Anthony came on without locking it down beforehand, and actually the week before, Goot, the Packers gal I had on, came on again too. So that's part of my pitch when I pitch, doing these dynamic lines. I'm like, hey, most of the people either have come back or would, because I think sometimes people worry about going on with the fan from their fan base line and be like, oh, the Niners are awesome and you guys suck and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And that's couldn't be further from the truth. I have a lot of respect for most of my opponents. And
especially to make it this far. I mean, it takes a lot of hard work. Our teams are both great teams.
It's not luck, right? Absolutely. But so I would say Gibson might be a close second to Lenore. Mooney Ward's a great cover guy, but he doesn't pick a lot of balls. Well, I guess he has had a few. But
that's the same with McDuffie for us. He's fantastic in coverage, but he still hasn't had a pick, and we're all just waiting on it. So, hey, if he wants to surprise us in the Super Bowl, by all means.
But a lot of those ball hawk guys that get a lot of picks, they also tend to get burned a lot. They take chances, and they give up a lot of big plays and TDs and stuff. So,
both ways. Yeah.
That was always the argument I made why I like Jimmy Ward, was he didn't get a lot of picks, but man, he was a big hitter, great coverage, and he just didn't give up big plays. Sure tackler, So, Carcass says Neymar literally does. Okay, all right.
Nick Bolton did have a scoop and score last year.
Yes,
he almost had a second one against Jalen, but they called it back due to it being not quite a fumble or whatever it was. But Nick Bolton almost could have been the Super Bowl MVP last season for us.
Oh yeah, and I of course gave Eagles a ton of grief over that, because I was like, oh yeah, Jalen Hurts was great in the Super Bowl, except for the part where he lost it with the fumble 6.
Twice, but one was just given back to him. But
interesting. And then just interesting to see that Eagles fell apart.
That was weird.
Yeah. I saw somebody, I need to probably repost it. Somebody said oh, the Eagles will start the season strong and then fall apart. And sure enough, that's pretty much what happened.
That definitely did.
No doubt. But we've been rocking it here for hour and 18, hour and 20 minutes. I want to be mindful of your time. I know you're not feeling great. So I want to just really thank you for coming on when you're not feeling your best.
Thanks for having me.
Other than a couple mutes, I don't think anybody would ever have known the wiser. You did a great job. Outstanding. Yeah. And, obviously we can't root for each other's teams to win, but we can, I think, agree on hey, let's have a good game. Absolutely. No injuries, no refs. We both agree on that. Nobody wants to feel like their team won because of the refs.
No one wants that. No one wants that. We want a fairly called game. We want no injuries. We want everyone at their best. Absolutely.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Nikos, what color is the Gatorade poured on the winning coach?
Ooh. Last year was purple. It's poured on Andy Reid. I'm kind of feeling yellow.
I'm gonna go with blue, that Honolulu blue, the Detroit Lions were.
All right, I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, no, great show. Anything else that you wanted to cover today that I may have missed? Any
I feel like we
angles?
covered pretty much everything. I'm just excited. I'm just looking forward to the game.
Yeah.
I think our teams are going to match up really well. I think we have a lot of similar strengths and similar weaknesses. So
I think it's going to be a hell of a game. I think that, Patrick Mahomes is obviously the better quarterback, but Brock has better weapons. And the defenses are both, I think, like third and fifth or something in the league, something like that. So this time of year, they're basically a wash.
Well, and there's a reason our two teams made it this far, is because we have a lot of really talented players. You guys might have more names, quote unquote, especially like on each side of the ball, but I feel like overall our teams are going to match up really well. I think it's going to come down to the wire. So
that's what happens when you pay your quarterback a lot of money. You can't have all the biggest names at every position the way the 49ers do. We're staring that.
Just wants to stay on the Chiefs.
We're staring that straight in the face after the 2024 season.
Right.
We'll definitely have to give Brock a big raise, or if we don't, someone else will. So
he's earned it. I mean, NFC Championship and then the Super Bowl. He's done well. So
he has.
Hats off to Brock, man. Hats off.
Same thing to Patrick. And I'll just say peace and go Niners. You want to give us what do you Chiefs say? Go Chiefs? No, I don't know.
Yeah, go
Chiefs Kingdom.
Chiefs Kingdom, maybe.
Thanks again for being on, Lexi. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
You bet.